Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we are going to get into something pretty fascinating from the world of Ayurveda, a condition called Prameha. It's basically a complex group of urinary disorders that was described in incredible, almost unbelievable detail centuries and centuries ago.
So let me ask you a question. What if your urine could tell a really detailed story about your health? It's a cool thought, right? Well, in Ayurveda, that's not just a thought. It's a core principle of diagnosis. We're going to explore how ancient physicians used just their powers of observation to build this incredibly sophisticated system for understanding our metabolic health.
All right, let's jump right in. Here's our game plan. First, we'll nail down what Prameha actually is. Then we'll look at the lifestyle and diet triggers. After that, we'll get into how it's classified using the 3 doshas, explore all 20 of its subtypes, which is the really cool part, and finally, we'll see why understanding all this is so important when we talk about complications. So first things first, what exactly is Prameha? You might hear urinary disorder and think it's simple, but it's actually a much bigger concept than just, frequent urination.
The name itself actually gives us a huge clue. The word Prameha comes from a Sanskrit root mixsekshane, which literally translates to watering, and the pra at the beginning means excess. So right there in the name, you get the core idea. Prameha is all about an excessive outflow of urine.
And that's the number one sign, the big one. It's that frequent, really strong urge to urinate. This is the main characteristic that signals something is out of balance.
But what kicks this all off in the first place? Well, the ancient Ayurvedic texts point to some very specific and maybe surprisingly familiar habits in our lifestyle and diet. So take a look at these triggers. A lot of them probably sound pretty modern, right? A sedentary life, sleeping too much, and then there's a diet that's heavy in things like curd, milk products, new grains, and just an overload of sweet or heavy foods. All of these are believed to be what starts to throw the body's natural balance out of whack.
Now, to really understand this imbalance, we have to look at it through the lens of Ayurveda's 3 fundamental energies, or what we call the doshas, kapha, pitta, and vata. These 3 give us the entire framework for classifying all the different types of Prameha.
And here is what's absolutely key to understand about this. Even though all 3 doshas can get involved, the ancient texts are super clear that one of them is the main instigator. The whole process, the whole disease, it begins with an imbalance in the kapha dosha. So think of it like this. Kapha is the one that gets the ball rolling. An aggravated kapha starts to affect the body's tissues. We're talking fat, muscle, body fluids. This initial stage is what gives rise to 10 specific types of Prameha. But if the condition isn't addressed and it progresses, that's when pitta and then vata get pulled into the mix, creating another 6 pitta-dominant types and then a final 4 vata-dominant types. All right, now we get to the heart of it. This is where Ayurveda's system of detailed observation just absolutely shines. We're about to look at the 20 distinct faces of Prameha. 20 different subtypes. And what's so amazing is that each one was identified without any modern lab tests. It was all based on the specific characteristics of the urine itself, its color, its consistency, its smell, and believe it or not, sometimes even its taste. Okay, first up we have the 10 kapha types. These are considered the early and more manageable stages of the condition. But just look at these descriptions. For udaka meha, the urine looks just like clear water. For ikshu meha, it's described as being very sweet, just like sugarcane juice. And get this, sandra meha is so dense that it actually precipitates. It forms a sediment if you just let it sit overnight. The level of detail is just incredible. So next you have the 6 pitta types. This means the condition has progressed, and here you can see the characteristics get more intense, often related to color and heat. Nila meha, for instance, is described as urine that's blue, like the feather of a blue jay. I mean, how specific is that? Or haridra meha, which is pungent and dark yellow, just like turmeric. And that brings us to the final 4 vata types. Now these represent the most advanced and difficult to treat stage. The descriptions here show that the body's tissues are becoming seriously depleted. For example, Vatsa meha is urine that's mixed with fatty oil, and Maja meha is said to look like bone marrow. The final type listed here, Madhu meha, is considered a really critical stage.
So you might be thinking, okay, that's a lot of detail, but why? What's the point of this incredibly detailed classification system? Well, it wasn't just for academic curiosity. It was a roadmap for treatment, designed to stop the condition from getting worse.
Because if those early signs, especially the ones in the kapha stage, are ignored, it can lead to a whole cascade of complications. We're talking everything from chronic thirst and indigestion to much more severe issues like cardiac pain and carbuncles. This system was all about prevention, all based on careful, early observation.
You know, one of the great Ayurvedic physicians, a teacher named Vagbhata, he put it pretty bluntly. He said that all 20 types of Prameha, if they're neglected or not treated the right way, eventually reach the terminal stage, Madhumeha, and that's the condition that many scholars today correlate with diabetes mellitus.